Hi, my name is Mark Biernot. I'm a monetary economist. In this video, I want to talk about the Russian ruble in relation to the US dollar, but also couple that with the idea of Vichy Ukraine and sanctions relief. But this is a technical analysis of the ruble and what story is the trend trying to tell us, and then we may have some news that may support that idea. First, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was a stockbroker, sometimes I make a sale. Let's say I sell 100 or 1,000 shares of ABC widget company to somebody, and then I'd go out to lunch. And then I come back, and then I call them up, I get on the phone and say, I'm sorry. It's about XYZ widget company. And they get all scared. What's the matter? Did it go down? Did it crash? And I'd be like, no, I'm sorry. I should have sold you some more. So they'd be like, oh, phew. And then they buy some more stock from me. And when people are investing and looking at trends of asset prices, whether it's stocks or currency, they get very nervous. They want to buy at the absolute bottom. The second hits the bottom and sell it at the absolute top. And if not, they're going to be unhappy. So when we see the ruble go down, ruble to dollars, 0.0088 at the low, when it hit blue support down, it blew through support. You say, well, anything up from that is going to be negative news, right? No, the trend is still intact. Confirmation from the trend. We have a stage 4 decline. It's stage 1 going up, 2, 1 plateau, 2 going up, 3 plateau at the top. Stage 4 has been going on for 15, 10, 5, 1 year, 6 months, 3 months, 1 month, 1 week, okay, even 1 day. It's been a steady, hard course, stage 4 decline. So even if we see the ruble recently going up, we're going to explain why it hasn't broke technical resistance and it's still in the stage 4. You may have some noise and it may dance around, but the 50-day moving average is 0.01000077. I don't read anything. It's all my brain. The 200-day moving average is 0.01008594. Okay? So that's the 50-day, 200-day. Again, the 50-day moving average is below the 200-day moving average, and that's a death cross. The actual price of the asset is 0.00971 right now, and that's still below these moving averages. So even though we've got a dead cat bouncer, or what I call a sucker's rally, then it's not confirmation that it's going to, and even if it did break out through the 200-day or the 50-day, you need to build a huge base, and it's a multiple of the time period that has been in a stage 4 decline. So ignore that. Ignore this noise and everything. The real story behind it is, as I explained before, is our Russian central bank is selling Chinese yuan, Chinese currency, in order to prop up the currency artificially so they can just make it barely, pretend, hanging on, like in a James Bond movie, onto some grip, or a Jason Bourne movie, hanging on until the next administration in Washington comes in and maybe there's something called sanctions relief. We're going to talk about that. So what are the other, so my point is the technical moving average, SMA, simple moving average, along with, if you look at the EMA or the MACD, it's all giving confirmation that it's still in a strong downward trend. RSI, relative strength index, is like 38.953. A normal currency like, let's say the euro or the dollar or something, has relative strength in a positive, more positive trend, positive neutral. That's where you want it, around 63, 62, depending on the day. So the Russian ruble has a poor relative strength, but the volatility tells the story. Okay? The volatility you got to look at here. If you rank volatility of the Russian ruble, it's from 1 to 10. It's a 9. The Venezuelan currency is a 9. The Argentine currency is an 8. Bitcoin is an 8 because it's correlated with the ruble. As we know, in my last video, I talked about that. The Russians are just funneling everything into Bitcoin and then buying U.S. real estate. That's why you don't have to too much fear, some of these things coming out. It should be some of these threats. Don't fear it. Be strong. And so normal currencies like the euro, the Swiss franc, the dollar, all these other volatility indexes are 4 to 3. Even the Chinese currency is around 4, believe it or not. It's hard to believe because they may be weak, but they're stable. So volatility is a very big telling sign. We can't, as I explained, go by volume when we're looking at technical indicators, because a volume on an OTC, especially something like obscure thing like the ruble, but any currency is OTC, and is not really good, reliable volume indicators as there is with like NASDAQ, the S&P index, FTSE, or whatever currency or asset price you're tracking, or even real estate. So the volume can't tell the story, so we have to look at volatility, but volatility is a great indicator. It's almost like you're in a relationship with somebody who's really volatile. They're gaslighting you. 1 minute they're nice, 1 minute they're not. They're just playing tricks on you. That's what's happening with the ruble. It's going all over the place. High volatility on par with the Venezuelan currency. And again, they're consuming rodents in Venezuela. Gives you a clue. It tells you a story. This is data. This is indication. I'm giving you the actual numbers, numeric, quantifiable data that's showing you that the volatility is extremely high with the ruble. That's very erratic. I could tell more stories about that, but I just want to get into the main point of the story. You've got a poor RSI. You've got extreme high volatility. And again, volatility is more correlated with negative GDP growth than almost anything else, than inflation or something, or deflation. You want to see where a currency is going, check the volatility. Volatility is very high. No matter what happens, Russia big, Russia strong, as they claim, and trying to prop up their currency, that country is going down economically. I can guarantee that. There's only one hope, and that's a negative hope. It's a dark hope. Because remember, Russia's going down, but if we have a change in the administration, there's something called sanctions relief. Whenever they say like relief, it sounds like it's a buzzword going around. It's going to be pumped a lot as like unpeacemakers, because I don't want to call them peacemakers. They're unpeacemakers, because we know General Marshal Foch, after WW1, said this is not a peace. It's an armistice for 20 years. So the unpeacemakers, the people who believe in paper, not reality, they're trying to push this thing called sanctions relief, carrot and the stick. Like, if Ukraine doesn't cooperate, then we're going to gaslight you guys, believing that you got a fair solution. Well, that's not true, because the unpeacemakers want sanctions relief, which are basically returning assets, unfrozen Russian central bank assets, $300 billion back to Russia to quote unquote stabilize financial markets. Again, that's gaslighting. That's not true. Okay. I think it was the president, the Nobel Prize winner of the World Bank. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he was saying that's not true. Okay. And there's a list of hundreds and hundreds of economists that also say that's not true. You want stable financial markets, you need transparency. Okay, that's stability. Giving that money back to Russia, the sanctions relief, make it sound like you're helping orphans and widows and orphans. No, that's the dark side. Because the ultimate plan is, like I said, this geopolitical conflict is caused by economics, but it's also perpetuated by economics. It's a lend-lease program for Russia. That means it's switching the lend-lease to the free, democratic, peaceful country of Ukraine and switching it and plugging it into Russia. I used to play these board game representations. It was this thing called Global War. And then afterwards, they had WW3, where a lot of it was related to merchant ships supplying the overseas of Europe and these industrial hexes. And you have these SSBNs or submarines or whatever trying to interdict the merchant lines to cut off the supplies. The ASW is trying to answer submarine warfare, trying to block that. Well, the Kremlin and the Tsar knows it's no longer about military, but it's about political controlling the pawns around the map. It's more like that game diplomacy. So he's trying to, snap that merchant ship supply line to Ukraine, not with submarines like the Germans did in World War II, but with actual political savvy of Machiavelli, right? So when they cut that and they actually give sanctions relief and push the lend-lease number 2, to Russia, actually, that's what sanctions relief are, then Moscow can create Vichy Ukraine, which is, if you know World War II history, then Vichy was, they'd occupy part of it. That's what they did with France. And then the other part would be a pro-Axis neutral Vichy France. So that's Vichy Ukraine. So that is why, there's this ruble is recovering a little bit, because of they're propping it up in hopes people will say, oh, this is strong. We'll never beat this Russia. Sarcasm, of course. They're propping up this ruble all they can to keep it at par with the dollar, right? Parity with the let's call it parity with the dollar. And then they've got this story of sanctions relief coming, and they're working it. Even, I was checking things on ancient history, and I'm checking other things about the cosmos. They're working this narrative into the pipeline of social media. You'd be surprised how they work it subtly. Even AI is getting fooled, okay, if you use these chat box. And this narrative is sanctions relief, and that is a message for them to give hope. So they're building this confidence of the ruble. So again, the tape tells all. No matter what stories you hear, no matter what news you hear, don't lose hope. because that's their narrative. That's what they want you to believe. It's not going to happen. And the ruble on a technical indicator may have a sucker's rally, and that's what it is. But the volatility tells most of the story. When you have high volatility on a scale from 0 to 1 to 10, 10 being an absolute dissolution of the currency, and 9 on par with Venezuela, even if the asset price is dancing around the moving average, I can't see that they profit up that much higher. They'd have to blow the bank, which they've already done. If that volatility, that's a technical elf. That's one of the greatest technical elves out there. If that volatility is a 9, and you've got currencies like the dollar, euro, Swiss franc, and all these others at a 3, 4, that tells you something. That's information. That's quantitative data you can take to the bank. So that's the update on the Russian ruble. So don't lose hope if you see it recovering a little and say, oh no, this collapse isn't happening. Where's the data? Look at the data. Look at the 3 or 4 technical indicators of moving averages, of volatility, of relative strength index. That's the data. That's the story. And you can go back to, like I say, hiking in the woods, playing chess, enjoying your life. Watch the tape. The tape tells all the technical indicators, and it's still telling the story. Russia's collapsing. Russia's going down. We got to hold off and be strong and be hopeful to make this world a better place. All right, enough of that. My name is Mark Biernot. I'm a monetary economist. Have a great day. Thank you very much.